Okay, this is John Cola with OKRaw.com here in beautiful Puerto Rico with my good friend Kailash. I've known him for over 10 years now. He works at the Wigmore Institute. He's one of the instructors there. He's been working there for over 10 years, and I wanted to interview him today so that he could tell you more about himself and the Wigmore Institute and what he's involved with and what he's teaching today. So Kailash, tell us about yourself and how you got into the raw and living foods lifestyle.
All right, John. I was born and raised in Germany, and I always say my name is pronounced almost like the Eyelash with a K at the beginning.
All right.
Eyelash, Kailash. Now you got it. And I was born and raised in Germany. My parents, fortunately, they raised me on a very healthy lifestyle. So I was a vegetarian my whole life. And then when I was, say, 15, 16 years old, I started to read more about veganism and those kind of things. And I thought, wow, this sounds good. I'm, again, not very scientific, just my heart told me to go the vegan route. And around the same time, I started working for this big distributor of sprouts in the south of Germany, and I thought, wow, this is cool. I really like the sprouting thing. And then a friend of mine told me about raw foods, and I thought, wow, this is great. Eating things the way they grow in nature, eating the fruits when they're ripe, eating just naturally. It just resonated with me. I didn't have much scientific information. I wasn't sick. Well, of course, nose running a lot, and the skin wasn't great. A lot of little things, but thank God I didn't have to go the route that many people have to, where they suffer from something very serious and then they change their lifestyle. Anyway, so in 1995, I remember the day, in May, I decided to go all raw, and I've never stopped. At the beginning, it was not so easy, I have to tell you, but I'm quite determined, so I said, you know, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it 100%. And I started reading some books, I started to talk to more people about it, and it just made so much sense to me. And the first books that I was introduced to were mostly in the area of natural hygiene. So I started reading and I thought, wow, this is cool, eating lots of fruits, and I love fruits, so it really, on a very deep level, resonated with me.
Great, Kailash. So you've worked at the Wigmore Institute now for over 10 years, and so tell us, what part of the program do people get the most benefits from at the Wigmore Institute?
You know, what I find that many people can realistically do at home is to sprout. And we know how good it is to eat fresh grown stuff, to eat organic stuff. We know how important it is to have lots of enzymes and to get chlorophyll and all of these things. We already know all of these things. And no matter if you're in a small apartment in Manhattan or if you have a big space, anybody can grow sprouts at home, whether you do it in a jar, whether you do it in a sprout bag, or whether you get these trays. Anyone can sprout. It's so easy. Just this morning I taught a class to about 30 people, and they're sprouting now. They have a project at the Institute, and they all got it. So anybody can sprout. Little kids, anybody can do it, no matter how little space you have. So I find that the sprouts are really excellent for people to do, and the two that I like to really focus on are the salad family sprouts, which includes things like alfalfa, clover, broccoli, radish, cabbage, and fenugreek, because except the fenugreek, they have chlorophyll, they're very alkaline forming, and they're calorically not very dense, so they give you a lot of micronutrients. The other group that is really excellent, I think, is the grain family. The gluten-free grains such as the quinoa, millet, amaranth, and we are just beginning to use teff. It's also a little grain, gluten-free. And I put buckwheat in here. I know it's not exactly a grain, but buckwheat is also a wonderful grain that can be used sprouted in the sprouted form. Those grains, you know, the carbohydrates are turning into simple sugars. The proteins are broken down into amino acids, fats into simple fatty acids, and so forth. So they're very easy to digest, give you lots of good calories, mostly from carbohydrates, low fat, as opposed to a lot of the oily seeds like sunflower, pumpkin. They're good to use too. We just have to be a little bit more cautious. And the amount of nuts that many people are eating is just getting lots of fat, as opposed to eating more the sprouted grains, which are lower in fat and mostly simple carbohydrates and lots of enzymes, of course.
Great. So you also do blending, and what are your thoughts on blending?
Yeah, you know, blending. We do a lot of blending, really. Actually, every dinner at the Institute is blended. There's some solid foods with the blended at dinner, like papaya often, the chunks of papaya. So Anne Wigmore was really into blending. Some of you may not know this, but at the end of her life, she was eating almost only energy soup. And energy soup is basically a mix of greens, lots of different greens. She loved the sunflower greens, she loved the buckwheat lettuce and the purslane, a wild edible weed. So we use a lot of those and blend them with a few other vegetables such as zucchini, yellow squash, some sprouts, and avocado sometimes. Can be, some people like to put apple in there. So it's kind of like if you put the fruit, it's kind of like a green smoothie, but you can also leave the fruit out and just have it like a vegetable soup. So we do a lot of blending, and I see that people finally are beginning to get the amount of greens into their lifestyles that they really need. And that was one of my weak points. I ate a lot of cashew nuts, I ate a lot of dates, a lot of other fruits, and I didn't focus on the greens. And so after 5 years of doing raw foods and some of the sauerkraut in Germany, we like sauerkraut, right? So I ate some sauerkraut uncooked. I really like the uncooked. And Wigmore, I really learned the importance of eating lots and lots of greens, and I like to blend them, not at every meal, but a lot of the time, because I can get a lot of greens into my system in a short period of time that are pre-chewed by blending them. Even green smoothies is an excellent idea that Wigmore also promoted a long time ago, blending greens with fruits to get more greens into your system. Most people I know, they don't eat too many greens and too little fat. So most people need to increase their greens and decrease their fat, and that's also one of the emphasis in this Living Foods lifestyle program that Dr. Wigmore developed.
All right, Kailash, so hanging out with you for the last week here, I've seen, and we went to several markets and got some crazy different fruits I've never tried before, and I did this trip, so I'm grateful, thank you. Sure. But I've seen you eat a lot of fruit, so what about a person out there, because we need to get our calories from somewhere, and either we get them from fruit or fat is usually the two different ways we get it. And I agree with you that most people usually get too many calories from fat. They eat way too high percentage fat in their raw foods diet. So what are your thoughts on the high fruit versus high fat raw foods diet?
Yeah, I've seen the best results. I coach people a lot. I go to their homes in Mexico and Brazil, all over the world actually, and I see them in their homes. I see a lot of what is realistic, what can people actually do in their everyday life, and what is unrealistic. And really what I see a lot is people eat too much fat from avocados, from different oils, also from the different nuts, and even sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds. A lot of the vegetarians, they got a lot of their calories from the grains and bread, pasta, etc. And now they're going raw and they're going all fat instead of getting the calories from the carbohydrates. Again, I don't recommend to eat the cooked carbohydrates. However, we can get these sprouts, which I mentioned before, the millet, quinoa, and so forth. We can sprout those, and instead of going to the nuts, going to the avocados or the olive oil and the flax oil. Of course, they have benefits. We know they have benefits. Avocados are great. They have benefits. However, the problem is most people overdo them, and they go over 10 or 15%, and it's easy to go over 10 or 15%. So to get enough calories, or at least to feel you're getting enough calories, most of us, we really get enough. It's not too much of a problem to get them. And if you don't want to go for the fruits, then the sprouted grains can be really an excellent source. And I see some people that come to the Institute who are insulin dependent, diabetic for a long time. Of course, nobody has become diabetic from eating too much fruit, as far as I know. At least all the people that I've met haven't. So some of them, just at the point they're in, their bodies are so out of whack, so out of balance. There's such an imbalance, a great imbalance, that unfortunately sometimes they cannot eat the amount of fruit that I eat and that I feel great with, and that I see other people like John can eat and just feel excellent with. And so the sprouted grains can be a very good source of carbohydrates. They're low in fat, less than 10% on average, and they're a good source of protein as well, 10 to 15% on average of calories from protein. So I highly recommend for those of you who feel that you would like to get your calories rather from the carbohydrates, but if you lean more toward the fatty foods, I recommend really start thinking about these grains, gluten-free grains. Please go only for the gluten-free. I'll repeat them again here. We have quinoa, we have millet, we have amaranth, teff is another one, and then I'll put buckwheat in here. Buckwheat is very nice. It's a little bit bigger, so some of the little seeds, sometimes if they're not blended, sometimes they just go through your system without breaking them down so well, unless you blend them. But the buckwheat is very soft, it's a very nice, has a nice flavor. You can virtually use them in any dish, whether it's a salad, whether you make a green smoothie, you could put some buckwheat in there if you want to increase your calories. You could even put them in any blended energy soup, which we make a lot at the Wigmore Institute, to get more calories if that's one of your concerns. Some of the raw foodists, look at them, they're losing more weight than they wish to, although they eat fat. And so this could also be a good way of getting more calories, if you don't want to go for the fruit, or if you can for some health reason, and still get good and healthy calories into your system.
Okay, thank you, Kailash.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is John Kohler with OKRaw.com, and we'll see you next time.